Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a good day. We're glad that you're here. So let's just go ahead and get started. Welcome to all of our participants, first-time members or first-time participants and returning members. Here's our agenda. I think Jennifer included it with the email, but we're going to talk first about the client-based class project that just finished. That was from the University of North Texas. Next, we'll talk about the Anthro Expo. This is at Cal State University Northridge. Third, we'll give you more information about the Departmental Advisory Initiative. Fourth, we'll talk about two different sets of webinars. I think we are the webinar kings and queens the last month or so. We seem to have done so many of them. Fifth, we're going to be announcing a new group in Canada called Anthropology in Praxis. Then we have a discussion question for you, and finally some updates. Okay, so we'll move on and hear from both Susan Squires and Sarah Heinemeyer about the class project. Susan?
I don't know if Susan's here yet. We got Sarah though.
Ooh, she isn't here yet. Okay, well, all right, then
Sarah's here.
Oh,
Sarah's
you
here.
are? Sarah's here. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Sarah, you want to take it then?
Sure,
All right,
sure.
go right ahead.
Well, I'm happy to be with you today. Thank you for letting me go first. I have a 4:30 client meeting. But I wanted to give a little bit of an update on our class project and some of the next steps. As some of you may know, ACRN served as a client for our organizational anthropology course down at UNT Denton. And we were working specific to the Departmental Advisory Initiative to kind of review and drill down on what makes a department more or less ready to engage in the DAI. As this type of initiative is becoming more popular, I think that there's going to be surging demand for the types of services, and there might need to be a way to prioritize which departments to work with. So our goal was starting with some initial criteria that were laid out for us by the DAI to kind of review and test, if you will, those criteria and see what ideas stuck to the wall as being indicative of a department that was more ready versus less ready. We presented two representatives from ACRN a few weeks ago. I believe those slides are available for review, I would imagine. What we're going to talk about today is an excerpt from that presentation.
Okay.
So what we found, we really elevating characteristics of not being ready. So these are departments that had agreed to work with the DAI, but maybe stalled out or didn't make as much progress as they had hoped. And three high-level ideas came forward. One, there was no clear definition of applied anthropology. And we tested this idea of applied anthropology both as a concept, but also in practical terms by asking, do you have applied anthropologists on faculty? What type of work are you doing? Are you working in the community? Do you have partnerships? And one of the, again, high level ideas is that departments that really struggled with either defining applied anthropology or identifying applied or practical work kind of struggled with the DAI in general. Another high level idea was the presence of conflict within the department or within the university. And that conflict may have been generated by external pressures on the university or the department specific to enrollment or changing the nature and flavor of what was being offered in order to fit the times and meet the university's new mission or the mandates that were coming to the university from the state or other stakeholders. A third major factor is reluctance in talking to and engaging with students. So that also was, I think, indicative of both ready and unready departments. Ready departments were really eager to engage with, learn from students, incorporate students in planning, really focused on what are students doing next? Where do they leave? When they leave our department, where do they go? What are they doing? Versus more of a reluctance, more of a keeping students at arm's length. those departments that were a little more distanced from students or reluctant or didn't have good strategies for engaging with students tended to struggle a little bit more with the DAI. Where we're going to head next through some volunteer follow-up hours, this initiative has kind of caught our interest. We heard the need for two types of screening tools. Number one, a screening tool that interested anthropology departments can use in considering their DAI proposal. So this would perhaps contain an overview of what it means to be ready, and this would be aligned with practical experiences in applied anthropology and really help those interested departments craft strong proposals that had a high likelihood of success. So a screening tool that was at the same time instructive as well as really helped with the planning for and the completion of a proposal. The second type of screening tool that we heard was something that could be used by ACRN or the DAI in deciding how to prioritize applications, which might be, again, a separate tool, but helping evaluate proposals with those readiness criteria in mind. So what's next over the next few months, over the summer, is taking what we've learned from the UNT Denton study and at least pulling together drafts of these instruments that we can then turn over for refinement to this group. As an example of some of the readiness criteria that emerged for us, and these are just examples, there's more to farm here. Ideas such as having a strategic vision and motivation for engaging in the DAI. Is there some larger idea or purpose that the department is trying to connect with? Does it have some strategic plans or documents? Does it have a business plan in place? And is there being are they being motivated, either volunteered or voluntold, by the university partners that they need to do this work? There are also, we heard ideas in critical leadership. We heard ideas about the importance of the chair of the department, as well as the dean, to be engaged and really being willing to spend some political capital to make sure that the DAA got done. That doesn't mean that everyone, all members of a department had to be fully engaged and donating hours, but there needs to be some critical leadership that's willing to invest and, in a sense, guarantee that the work is going to move forward. And then indicators in this idea of connections. This is, again, just another example of how connected is the department with other departments, with other university offices, and with venues in the community, the larger professional community or the community that surrounds it, so that those practical linkages could be made. There's certainly more to harvest from the data. I'm just putting these ideas forward as examples of ideas that might make their way into those screening tools.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that.
Sure thing.
Okay, and now we turn to the Anthro Expo at CSUN.
Elizabeth, were there questions for me? If not, I will probably sign off.
Ask Sarah, and I see Susan is on too.
Okay.
Anyone like to ask a question now?
I have a question.
Hi, sure.
Hi. I'm going to put something in the chat so I can, if I can do it correctly. Okay. Okay. So this is great. I think this is great. When I think in terms of marketing ACRN or ACORN, I think of what you're doing relative to a kind of ranking. So there are some departments that are very ready and some departments that aren't ready at all. And then you go beyond that and you say, well, so what do we do about that? And one of them has to do with them reaching into you and kind of coming inbound. And I just posted something that I just stole from AI on inbound versus outbound marketing. And outbound marketing is you reaching out to them. And so if you know that their departments are very ready, really just anxious to get something on this front, then you reach out to them. And then there are some departments that are in the middle and some departments that are at the lower end, but you can structure the marketing that you or we do for ACORN relative to their levels of readiness, and the type of marketing you do, inbound versus outbound, really makes a difference. And inbound, of course, is somewhat more passive, but there are ways of addressing that and kind of creating a hybrid. Anyway, that's just one thought.
Thank you for that. We'll note that and see how it kind of intersects with the screening tool development. Other questions, and I welcome Dr. Squires to weigh in as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't find the link to get in, so I missed most of our presentation. I'm sorry, Sarah. I think you did a great job at the end. And I think in addition to the tool and tool development, the people who participated in this study, the students, had many, many other suggestions for developing mechanisms to help departments come up to a readiness, meet them where they are, and then facilitate them in their to increase their readiness, for example. So there were lots of other suggestions, and thank you, Robert, for yours as well. I think we had something that was similar to that, because we do have students who are marketing professionals, and had thought of that. So I think, great, I'm so glad you reinforced that idea. But as Sarah said, there's a lot more to mine from the data, but there's also a lot more to mine from the recommendations that we made to DAI. Thank you.
Looks like Helen's hand's up.
Helen,
Hi there, Sarah. Thank you for the
Hi.
presentation and the work that you've shared today. Regarding the departmental advisory initiative, I'm wondering to what extent has that project or worked with programs or majors that have been sunset or discontinued to perhaps revitalize what's possible. So, in thinking of new pathways, transformations in these kinds of programs, is there a space for that with this project?
Helen, that's a really interesting question. Short answer, we have not considered it because we have not been approached by those departments specifically with the intent of some advising or consulting with them. Maybe that's something that we could take offline.
Yeah, I'll add, I think our priorities so far has been really around helping departments stay open by showing the value of anthropology, specifically around careers. But yeah, I don't think we would say no, but we probably have to understand, like, yeah, the scope on that. All right, Elizabeth, I know you've got more on the agenda.
Yep.
Thanks all. I
Thank you.
need
Thank
to
you.
sign off, but thank you for allowing me to be with you.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, and so now we're going to go and talk to Adrian Conway and Irene Green, if they're both here.
I don't see Irene on the call, but I do see Suzanne Sheld is on the call.
Okay, great. Well, then why don't you start, Adrian, and then Suzanne can follow.
Okay, so CSUN has an annual Anthro Expo. It's a chance for the department to come together and display student contributions, show off our work, what we've been doing. This year, the format was adjusted a bit to show, as you can see, from fieldwork to futures, anthropology in the real world. So the program featured speakers, alums came in, talked about their careers, how they used their anthropological toolkit in their current careers. You could see career talk with alumni. I was able to co-chair or co-host a CV building workshop with one of the faculty, Dr. Katie Brown. That's me in action, showing off the differences between a resume and a CV. There was also the student research poster session. So this was the first time in my recollection of participating in Anthro Expos that posters were presented, which was a really exciting format for a lot of the students. Really, I think what we should really hone in on and talk about is this methods mixer that was a brainchild of Dr. Suzanne Sheld, who is the department chair, who's on the call. I'll let her chat about that in a little bit. But she set it up as like a speed dating exercise so students could come around to different stations and learn about different methods or careers. Or in Irene's case, she was here to represent ACRN. So they were able to come up and get information about ACRN. So it was a really fun-filled day. I want to say, Dr. Shell, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it went from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So it was a long session. Students could drop in, drop out. We had students not only from anthropology majors and anthropology classes, but also from other majors. They were invited to come in through our college and through our dean. So it was a very exciting day.
Suzanne, would you like to say anything?
Well, I'd like to say that Adrian's workshop was really outstanding. The students really, really connected with her and really benefited from it. And it was helpful to have that workshop follow, and it was intentional to follow the career talk because it was like the display. The first talk was the display of where alum have taken anthropology, and there were diverse fields that were represented. And then the next talk was, well, how do I do to get ready for any one of these pathways? So it was really perfect. And that workshop, I can't emphasize enough how helpful it was. And then the poster session, I want to tell you, was tied to a class, because in the past we've had a unique like evening event where graduate students in the research design class give presentations on their research proposals, and it was increasingly hard to get a critical audience there to make it meaningful for the graduate students. So this year, Kim Kerner took the lead in that class and trained all the students to make these posters. And I have to say that was really a really excellent idea, because the amount of engagement that the students had, I mean, they had to keep talking about their project, and you know how poster sessions are, they can be very, very engaging. So it really, I think it really boosts the confidence of the students, and in that, period of representing their work. And also they, Kim asked the other instructors in the department, to evaluate some of the posters. So the faculty were very involved in circulating and giving feedback to the graduate students. And other students, aside from graduate students, were involved. But there was about 16 posters altogether in that room that has capacity for about 100 people. So it just seemed very alive. The methods mixer was, really sort of it was almost like a mini poster session without the poster. It was sort of, we wanted to really emphasize the idea that what you leave the program knowing is how to do things. And what do students do? So we considered networking, such as working with ACRN, as, a skill that students need to have in order to be ready for their careers, as well as understanding how to conduct participant observation, for example. So we had a broad range of students presenting a broad range of skills that they had worked on. And Adrian talked about an approach to analysis that she used in her thesis. Other students displayed how they used Omeka in a curation project, and had PowerPoints, and were just kind of showing students show and tell kind of a thing. And that session was about an hour long. And so there were 4 turns. So it was like 10-minute segments, basically. And it was great, because I think there's some value for students in repeating things immediately. And it was just very engaging. And the final session was just all the students who presented on this panel were working in community engagement projects. So this is a symposium we've been doing for about 15 years. But this year was the most dynamic, I would say.
It was a lot of that immediate student feedback, like Suzanne was talking about, was really, we were getting as presenters, this is so helpful. This is, wow, I never thought of that. So it's really something, I think, leaning into networking and post, academic careers. Where do you need to start? I think that was really highlighted too. And I really look forward to participating in the future in something like this, because I think it was a really valuable experience for sure. I mean, of course, we all like to talk about our research and what it is we did, but I think that this gift of giving back, as far as let me show you this new way of thinking about how you can market yourself. Let me show you the difference between a resume and a CV. I mean, these little like, you know, um, uh, like nuggets of information that people could pick up and take with them has been very valuable. I've gotten some really good feedback.
It's another way to add, also promote anthropology among non-anthropology majors, because we ask the faculty who teach GE classes to bring their classes. So we sort of social engineer the audience a little bit. I think that day over 200 students participated throughout the day.
Great. All right, ladies, we'll move on, and we're going to hold questions now because we'll just have them at the end. So I'll just talk very briefly about the departmental advisory initiative and what we're learning. So we're seeing now with the I guess about 10 programs that we've been working with, that departments are really starting to blend together the theory and the practice, and they're doing so through career readiness. Somehow, career readiness is easier to digest, and doesn't put up barriers that the word practice might. So that's part of what seems to be happening here. With the DAI program, we're finding out that people are talking about solutions and trying to figure out ways that they can then address the concerns expressed by parents, administrators, prospective students, and so on. And so this is fabulous. We're also learning that in the DAI program, the word skills or competencies is becoming increasingly prevalent and something that people in departments are focused on. And here are some of the key ones: problem diagnosis, solutions mindset, collaboration, communication. The next thing that the departments seem to be doing is pushing work experiences. Now, some of this has already been going on, for example, and get service learning or community engagement, that kind of thing. In some cases, we have internships happening. But whatever a department has been doing, it now is doing more than it did before. And then finally, we're learning that this program is really enabling students to think about careers differently, think about them with respect to what they might want to do that's of interest to them, where they can use their anthropology. So all of that is really important. These are the programs that are currently in the mix. I think you've seen most of these before. The newest entrant is Tulane. And I'll just say a few words about some of them because each seems to focus on slightly different things. So I'm highlighting one thing from each. So at Delaware, we've talked about this before, they came up with the concept of the department roadmap to explain to their majors exactly what would happen over the course of the time they were an undergraduate. And it's a visual depiction. At Texas A&M, they did a faculty survey, got a reasonable response rate, and learned that their faculty are already doing quite a lot. They talk about careers in many of their courses. They have brought in practitioners. They give various assignments related to career readiness. So all of that is good, and it forms a nice foundation for the work that we are doing there. At Indiana, after they had written up a description of our campus visit in the annual report required by the university, the dean read it, and the dean has now become the department's biggest supporter. So much so that he has touched base with the career planning office, and now they're telling us that the department expects to become a model for all the other disciplines in the college. At Westchester, one of the things they're doing is developing an alumni advisory committee. This is very similar to the practitioner advisory board. It just uses alums rather than, or I should say, community advisory board. It uses alums rather than community members, which is fine, and that they will use those alums to consult on skill development as well as curricular changes. Oregon State finished writing a new mission statement. They didn't have a mission statement, nor did they have a vision statement, but they do have one now, and they are in the process of updating their alumni webpage. ECU, East Carolina University, is thinking about renaming some of its courses. So I put down two that I thought were pretty hilarious. The Anthropology of Dogs, don't ask me what that's about, and Barbecue Spirits and Healthcare. And then Michigan Dearborn is planning two events coming up both in the fall and winter terms, which highlight the work of alumni. And now we'll move on to the webinars. As I mentioned, we have been out the wazoo with webinars. Jennifer, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so this first group, this is the career transition webinars. So we recognized that, there's a lot of people having to go through a career transition willingly or not right now, between the federal cuts and industry layoffs that have been happening for a while, especially in technology. So we kicked off this series with a communal care listening session to just really gauge, what type of support people are looking for. And we've built out a pretty robust series. So this is going weekly, though we are skipping holiday weeks. So our next one is going to be tomorrow with Raul Nolan around, how do you apply domain analysis in terms of targeting your job search and getting familiar with maybe like a new area that you haven't worked in before. And we're also alternating between a more topical webinar around particular skills or approaches to a job search with speed networking. And we're also looking at maybe doing some networking that's more around like particular topics. So I think our next speed networking session with Melissa, hey Melissa, is going to be where we'll drop people into pairs to get to know each other. But I think the one after that, we might experiment a little and have rooms that people can join around particular industries or topics. All right, yeah, and we have this Google Doc, which I will pull up after I'm done talking and drop in the chat for you. So this Google Doc was developed by a working group that we pulled together around this career transition project. And it features a number of resources that you can use, as well as links and abstracts for the webinars that we have up and ready. We did choose to not record these webinars just because we want to respect people's privacy, especially if they are maybe not ready to take the leap and they don't want their name on a call. But a lot of the presentations that we've done have so far have some overlap with work that we did with AAN. So we can jump if you want to that.
Yeah.
Is that the next slide? Yeah, so we've been partnering since January with the Applied Anthropology Network. They're a section of the ESA, the European, I think, Association of Social Anthropology. They've been really wonderful partners to work with. All of these presentations are recorded and available on their YouTube. So we've been linking them on our website, but you can also find them if you search for AAN on YouTube. You can find all of the videos. So we have our last one next month. I just did the one around turning your resume to CV. So we'll keep you in mind next time, Adrian. But our last one will be around explaining anthropology to people in your life. And we do have a tool that we've got in the works that we're going to have available to go along with that.
Yeah, and Ryle, do you think you could talk a little bit about that last one? I've put the abstract in here so you can see it.
Yes, okay, sure. Just very briefly. I mean, this arises from some stuff that we've been talking about inside ACRN for a while, and then we did a presentation at SFAA about this. The whole thing got started a couple of years ago when we did our Delphi surveys of younger practitioners, and one of the things that we surveyed them on was how did they explain anthropology to people in the workplace, and we got some very interesting responses from them. Including a bunch of responses from people who said, nobody at work cares whether I'm an anthropologist or not. All they want to know is, can I do the job? Which was fine, but we still needed to figure out how to help people explain this to recruiters and interviewers and bosses. So we've developed a bunch of really short scenarios based on some of the things that people have told us about some of the questions they get asked and some of the situations they get into. And I'll just finish by saying one other thing, which is we will roll this out eventually. It's in tool form now, and it's coming out quite soon. But one of the things that we have learned talking to the Europeans about this is that there are cultural differences in what you say to people when you explain yourself as an anthropologist, and also what they hear when you say those things. And so we're intrigued by that, and we want to follow up on some of that. We're not trying to make a huge big deal out of it, but we did notice some distinct cultural reactions to things that we were not expecting. There.
Great, thank you. Okay, Natalie.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see people I haven't seen in a long time and some people that I have not met. So hi there, I'm Natalie Myers. I'm in Calgary, Alberta in Canada. Some of you have been great mentors and friends to me, and basically have watered the seeds that grew into anthropology and praxis. This has been a passion project of mine and some friends of mine in Calgary that we have recently launched at the Casca conference just a few weeks ago in Montreal. Anthropology and Praxis is Casca's now official PPA, Professional Practicing and Applied Anthropologists network. And we are a separate organization. We actually are a nonprofit entity and the official Casca network. And therefore, we have determined for ourselves at the moment that we will remain free. So this is a network for individuals that don't have to be a member of Casca, which in all of the research and looking around and experiences that I've had volunteering with other groups and talking to AAN, we wanted to model our organization on some inclusivity and to draw in anthropologists that are currently not necessarily identifying as anthropologists and aren't connected with a community. And I can tell you we have about 50%, I think it's over 50% now, of the members that have signed up have declared to us through our membership form that they aren't members of Casca. So our capture is validating what we hope to see more of, is the anthropologists out there working that are not going to Casca events, not signed up for Casca, maybe members of other organizations, but don't have an opportunity to share their work. And so it's free. We're a Google group. We are committed right now to having bi-monthly meetups virtually. So we're just in the process of planning that. When you sign up as a member, there's a few questions that we ask people so that we can get a sense of what they're looking to understand. And it's very clear that network is at the top of the list. Learning from each other is at the top of the list. Having a registry or a directory of anthropologists at the top of the list, and supporting students is at the top of the list. So all the things that we talk about here with ACRN is very vibrant. So here's some pictures that thankfully Elizabeth took, because my ethnography hat was being stretched very thin when I was at Casca. I had an opportunity to speak at 2 different sessions, and our co-founders and conveners hosted a session with the outgoing president, Bernie Purley, to talk about and launch officially the organization. You can see a little picture of the little handouts, little postcards that we gave. They're both in French and English. And we did something virtually. And now we're planning something in June to bring in the rest of our community that may not have seen this announcement. It wasn't a lot of time prior to Casca to get it organized. And then on the last slide, again, just what our mission is. Our conveners are myself, Cora Wood, Kayak Willem, and Craig Candler. And we are working together to put the plans in place, establish ourselves, starting fairly organically, like a lot of these organizations were volunteer run. And we're hoping that eventually we can be a conduit to pointing to ACRN resources. We know that there's a great need for outreach. Elizabeth was at Casca and she spoke a lot, and I think made a huge impression on a lot of different people around what students need and the drivers behind ACRN's work. We are no different in Canada. We have, nuances clearly around anthropology departments, and the understanding of anthropology. What we share is really a lack of understanding of anthropology, lack of awareness, a lack of knowing how anthropology is being applied. People that are out there being with trained as anthropologists are calling themselves something else. We want to bring these tools and skills to the community in Canada so that they can, for themselves working outside, be proud anthropologists so that we can drive some advocacy towards those institutions training anthropologists. If we don't do that, and students don't grow up wanting to be anthropologists, where are our departments going to land? And we all already know, especially, and I feel I see the pain happening online with what's happening in the United States. We should never be, never count ourselves out from having similar challenges. We have different governments in every province that have different priorities. We're hearing outcomes-based research funding, careers-focused research, careers-focused funding, and this is having an impact on universities depending on where you are. So it's in our best interest generally to make anthropology a known, valuable discipline, and to drive the value into our academic institutions, because we really do have to work together and continue to drive sort of that advocacy. So that is who we are. We have some partners and collaborators, and really what that means is we're here to support the global movement of anthropology. So we will see where things land. We're just getting our feet off the ground, and we will provide updates, and I'd be happy to answer questions about any part of our organization. And we have one student here, Cynthia from Calgary, who asked that she get to say a few words. Cynthia?
Thank you for inviting me over to speak here for this event. Perhaps it's one of the few events that I'll be able to attend here, depending on my schedule. So I'd like to speak on the impact that Casca had for practicing anthropologists. It's really given them a chance to network within the organization. And I saw that very clearly with how we had a few academics attend our session. We had the president attend our session. It's really a chance to bring people together. And I would say that's so important. As a student, you need to have that community to help you out. So without that community, without sort of like having networking sessions, without all these events, it's very difficult for a student to come and to out of college and then find a job or like get a master's degree, because there's nobody there to help them. So when you go and you gather at conferences, it shouldn't be just a conference, it should be sessions like this are really amazing. They get people into contact with students. And it's sort of like, if you think of it, how, indigenous culture or every culture or society is transmitted, it's through connecting with the young people. It's kind of like telling students, hey, this is what you can do. This is what you can try and aim and achieve for. these are sort of the paths that you can be able to pursue during your time at university, so that when you are out of university, you have the necessary skills and tools that you need to be able to pursue a post-graduation degree, or, on the academic side, get a master's, but that's not the purpose of our session. I'd say I really encourage seeing this. This is really amazing. And it's not just, students who come from a monocultural background who need this sort of work. Students who come from marginalized backgrounds, people who hold within them multiple cultures, they just don't realize the potential that they are having. I'm working as a tour guide, which isn't really like anybody could do that. But for an anthropologist, when you get that keen sense of understanding difference and how to talk to people and like how to interact with people, it's so key because it opens the door to other fields, and it sets you up for future success. So that's why we should really be helping university students, especially students who come from, immigrant and marginalized backgrounds. We should be helping them set up for success. That's the main theme that I want to drive home to you, is believe in student power. Believe in the fact that students, we're like Generation Z, is perhaps one of the most technologically native generations out there. And with the rise of AI and automation, we need the young generation who understands, or who is very much competent with these social and cultural changes, to lead the way. And I'd say any group or any culture that doesn't really empower the young people, it's bound to be static. And anthropology is a confluence. It's a dynamism of rivers coming together, intersecting the old and the new. And if you just have one without the other, you can't really have the vibrancy that we have here. What a better way to do this than being in a city where two rivers meet? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Cynthia.
thank you, Cynthia.
That was lovely. Okay, we have a discussion question for you. What are you hearing in your field or in your university around hiring and funding prospects, particularly given federal uncertainties? And this, I think, also equally applies to Canada. So I'm going to stop the share for a minute, and you're welcome to put any comments that you have in the chat. And you're also welcome to raise your hand either manually or with the hand symbol. I have seen many LinkedIn posts about historical preservation and the fear that the changes that have been initiated by the current administration will just continue. So much so that they will move not just from the federal government and all the terminations that have happened there to archaeologists, but move into the states with the SHPO offices, the State Historical Preservation. Maureen, you probably know more than anybody about this.
Right. Yeah. Hey, y'all. I'm Maureen Myers. In the CRM field. I work for a mid-sized firm in the Southeast. Our concern right now, our major concern, is that not only has the new budget cut all the historic preservation funding, so all historic preservation funding has not increased in the last, I believe, 20 years. But now it's gone. And what that means is that all state historic preservation offices and all tribal historic preservation offices will no longer be funded. They're just gone. And we see this as a part of a larger issue with the way this administration is operating. So if you get rid of the people, if there's no one there to check that the laws are being followed, it doesn't matter that you get rid of the laws or not. if no one's there to do it. It also obviously adversely affects a lot of state governments. So we're already seeing, I'm on a government affairs committee with the Society for American Archaeology. And so far, the roll call is, I think 5 states are making cuts or have made cuts, and that's of staff. And the other issue, though, is that they haven't, even though the budget was approved for this year, they won't release the funds to staff, pay for the staff for the rest of this year. So that's why Ohio's already letting people go. I believe Oklahoma has let people go and a few other states. So that also affects state tax credits, a lot of state programs. So that's very alarming right now. If you haven't contacted your senator, please do so, and your congressperson, although it's a little late after the passage last night of the bill. Another issue is NEPA, National Environmental Protection Act. They are ramping up the review. So cultural resources falls under NEPA. Any federal project that's done has to have a NEPA review, and they've moved that review up immeasurably. So NEPAs usually take a while. I started one 3 years ago, and we're just finishing it up now. But we found an important early 19th century rare Chickasaw settlement as part of that NEPA review, and it will now be a traditional cultural property, for example. All of that gets ramped up so that you have between 6 months and a year to do the entire NEPA review. And that's, of course, all environmental and archaeology. But I should also say ethnography, because that was part of the NEPA review that we did, interviewing tribal members and applying that to our interpretations. So I really urge you all to contact. I know everybody's contacting, but this is an issue that I'm not seeing getting a lot in the main news. In terms of hiring, I would say in general, the field is, I'm in a CRM group, and we're just sort of in a waiting pattern right now. And I'll end with saying that there is SAA and ACRA, the lobbying group for CRM, is having a job fair with some folks on a panel. I'm one of the people on June 4th, and I'll send that information on as well.
Oh, that would be good. Anybody else have any thoughts? Ryle?
Two things. One, I don't know if the rest of you saw this, but the Pennsylvania system is proposing closing something like 7 of their campuses. And I looked them up. I'm familiar with some of them, not with others. And it turns out of the 7, 4 of them have anthropology departments. So we can expect, if the legislature does what it says it's going to do, well, not the legislature, it's the management of the Pennsylvania state system. There will be a whole bunch of anthropologists out of work. They will disappear, not just the departments, but the whole institution. My comment on that is that all of that is a done deal. The horse has left the barn. By the time that happens, there's nothing that you can do except damage control. And what concerns me about this whole thing is that I don't think we know anywhere near enough about what kinds of pressures and what kinds of threats are coming at people, because my suspicion is, and this is based on not a very large sample of the institutions that we talk to, the pressure comes in different forms and in different ways, and pressure isn't the same thing on all campuses. In some cases, it's directly political. In other cases, it's fiscal. And in other cases, it's in response to a new industrial policy, say, set at the state capitol. And I think it would behoove the discipline to sort of understand a little bit more globally about what the threats are and to sort of unpack it a bit, because forewarned is forearmed. And I think we don't know very much about this. We're all scared of it. We're all pissed off. And we can all see what's happening, but once it happens, it's done. And what I'm worried about is what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day. As a final sort of note to that, one of the things that I think most anthropology departments ought to get started on right now is understanding how the budgeting process at their own universities actually works. Because when you talk to faculty members, you often find that they have no idea. They just get given a budget and then it's sort of it's a black, it's a black box. So my plea is for sort of a little bit more research as well as some angst, because the damage is already happening, and what I'm trying to do is figure out how can we prevent more damage. Anyway, that's all. That's just.
Thank you.
And I'll call it, Suanna did drop a link in the chat on how to contact your Congress member. And from what I've heard, speaking with like my local state representative, the more personally you can kind of make your testimony that you share with them, the more helpful it is for them as something that they could like read out on the floor as part of making their case. So they'll only share as much as you want. My senator is Josh Hawley, so I don't know how much I'd want to. And we did see some comments in the chat, especially around a lot of layoffs in the tech industry, specifically around research. And I'll say from like the consulting perspective, yeah, it's pretty dry out there in terms of people having budget or even feeling like they can make decisions, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it feels like people are paralyzed, organizations are paralyzed because they don't, well, there's the tariff issue, but even beyond tariffs, it's just not clear what's going to happen next. Anyone else? Cynthia.
I just read a very sad article from the American Anthropologist, and before I continue, who's a member of the AAA? Everybody? Including Natalie?
No,
Oh,
not everyone.
You're a Canadian member of AAA, and so am I. Just a reminder, I need to pay my membership later on this month. Never mind. This is just a personal little joke. Pay your memberships by the end of May. That's what I do. So they actually posted something that's quite sad. Can I just share my screen for a second?
Sure. Hold on one sec.
Think I can.
I think you should be able to.
Yeah. Okay, so if I just go to AAA right here, which is, I know it's in the US, so this hits hard for a lot of Americans, especially Americans who are devoted to anthropology, but read this article right here. It's from 7 hours ago. It says, eliminate anthropology is a growing narrative. In this research article, this anthropologist, Jose Leonardo Santos, dives deep into the public discourse surrounding anthropology and the broader social sciences, revealing a troubling trend, increasing call for audits, cuts, and even the erasure of our discipline. That's actually going to affect hiring, because if I stop sharing my screen here, because these cuts that departments are having to face is going to affect the quality to which people will reach out, like liaisons will reach out to corporations, to governmental bodies, to NGOs, to not-for-profits, to basically anybody who wants to hire people who know how to talk to people. And I've seen this like firsthand, not firsthand, but I was part of the internship program at the University of Calgary, and it's literally underfunded. There are 2 people who are responsible for running the whole program, including hiring students, supporting students, onboarding and offboarding students. So it's gonna cost a lot of quality, because the less people that we have to train students, the more understaffed universities are, the more the worse the quality. So I think that this is something that and he's right, anthropology is under attack as much as archaeology is, by the increasing privatization of governments, and governments wanting to develop as opposed to thoroughly looking at, okay, where does this remain belongs to, you know? It's just develop, 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 and this is going to attack the social sciences, you know?
Yeah, it's coming. Anyone else? Because we're closing in on the end here.
Yes, if it's okay, I just
Yes, go
wanted
ahead.
to thank you, Cynthia, for your comments there. I think you made a great point about we're seeing a very fast spread of all this change and stopping in funding. So it's not just in higher ed, it's not just right at federal level. It's now becoming everywhere. And it's been that way for a while, but it seems to be speeding up quite rapidly in the last few months or so. So we can't all necessarily think about, okay, we're going to lose a few programs here and there. Now AAA is feeling it a lot. Now the entire discipline of anthropology and all its subfields and so on is feeling it so much. So if there's a way to try to, as we've been talking about, advertise anthropology's value and utility to career readiness and being able to pivot careers and so on, that's a key place where I think anthropologists need to share their message. I think it was Natalie who said a little earlier in the meeting that students, they need anthropology. You're talking about anthropologists who don't really identify as anthropologists, and why is that? That's an interesting question, but in some cases, it's trying to basically maybe hide because anthropology is under attack, but trying to communicate the value of this broad, vast, important field to problem solving and working with other disciplines, whether it's in health or business or government or what have you. So Ryle said something about, more research on what are the threats. And yeah, there's many different threats, from declining birth rates of, those who are considering entering college and university at a traditional college university age in the United States, to fiscal threats, to political threats, to this whole question, what is the value of this thing called anthropology or a college education in general? All of these things are coming at anthropology and other disciplines at once, it seems. And so it's hard to determine the best solution or approach to try and address multiple factors. But I'm trying to find some strength in working with other disciplines around things that people might be more familiar with, around healthcare, around health initiatives, for example. But you could also create relationships with business and so on and so forth. So I'll stop there, but I was just trying to link different ideas shared here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Helen. I just want to show the last slide that I have here. Updates, and there are 3 aspects of that. There's a Scholars to Storytellers retreat in Poughkeepsie, New York, if anyone is interested in that. With the Career Transition Series, we would love for any of you to come up with a webinar idea. When you get this slide deck, it'll be posted probably early next week. You'll be able to see the list of what we've got. And if you have something you feel would be useful for others, please contact Jennifer. And then the last one is the, let's see, what was it called? Anthropological Responses to Health Emergencies. Kristen, can you just say a word about this?
Sure. We're a special interest group out of the Society of Medical Anthropology. And in 2022, we launched this Policy Brief Award. And we're really trying to highlight the application of anthropological data, kind of collecting it and turning around into actionable policy brief recommendations. So we tried to widen the call this year. If you go to our website, you can kind of see the whole list of how wide we made it. It can be teams submitting it, but we have a professional and a student level award. And so the call is open now. So please check out our website and let me know if you have any questions.
And how long will the award be open for this round?
Until right now, first round until July 1st.
Okay, great. I can try to add that to the slide. All right, and then our next call will be in 2 months. So it'll be July 24th at 4 o'clock Eastern. Love to have you all come back if you're not hiking in the mountains or at the beach or some other fun place. But thank you so much for coming today. Appreciate your support as always, and thanks to all the presenters.